Sharael, Taha.
Mr. Speaker, in the past 3 years, we had battled for lives and livelihood due to the pandemic. The scale of this pandemic should not be forgotten. Over 6.6 million lives were lost globally, including 1,331 in Singapore. And the global economy took a severe hit. Our country's economy contracted by 4.4% and suffered its worst recession since independence. Several industries such as aviation, hospitality, and the aerospace industry were brought to a literal standstill, threatening people's livelihoods. In 2019, 68.3 million passengers passed through Changi Airport. At the height of the pandemic, passenger traffic fell to its lowest levels ever, barely reaching 0.5% of 2019. These numbers paint a stark picture. The impact of COVID-19 was unprecedented in many ways. Streets, schools, and offices were empty during the circuit breaker. People were separated from their loved ones during festivities such as Chinese New Year, Hari Raya, Deepavali, and Christmas. Even places of worship were empty as we all took the collective responsibility to stop the spread of this pandemic. It was indeed the crisis of our generation. The crisis tested our values as a society. It laid bare what we would be willing to do to support one another. Now that the pandemic has passed, it is an opportune moment to reflect on how we performed as a society and what values would we like to shape the future of our society. 3 critical values that emerged during the pandemic were trust, care for each other, and the resilience of society. Firstly, trust was essential during the pandemic, whether in each other or in the authorities and various agencies. Compliance with safe management measure guidelines were essential, and it became everyone's responsibility to practice basic hygiene for the greater good. Additionally, when the guidelines changed during the pandemic, such as group size, distancing, and mask wearing, we trusted the views of experts and adapted quickly. At work, new requirements were implemented due to the pandemic. Staff had to be split into 2 teams to minimize contact between employees. In factories, even during breaks, workers had to be separated from one another. Additionally, masks had to be worn by those in high-risk jobs, such as those for our delivery workers. In many other countries, even basic needs, such as the wearing of masks, became highly contentious and heavily politicized issues. Thankfully, this wasn't the case here. We trusted the advice of experts and implemented necessary measures without delay. By doing so, we were able to move forward without losing valuable time and energy on unnecessary debates. Secondly, caring for each other was crucial during the pandemic, where we witnessed an unprecedented outpouring of care for one another. The pandemic has brought to light the sacrifices that workers make to support society. Among them are healthcare workers who continued to serve tirelessly even during the early days when little was understood about the virus. As the number of cases increased, healthcare workers put in longer hours to ensure our healthcare facilities were not going to get overwhelmed. In addition to healthcare workers, our essential workers, driven by a sense of responsibility, have also made numerous sacrifices to continue serving society despite their own reservations and even those of their families. Workers in industries such as transportation, platform workers, aerospace and ports, water and electricity industry have played a crucial role in keeping our infrastructure running amidst these challenging times. Beyond the sacrifices of our workers, care for one another. Besides the sacrifices of our workers, care for one another also meant helping those in need of financial support due to the financial challenges brought about by COVID. The government's financial support for businesses, workers, and individuals was unprecedented. The job support scheme, for example, helped businesses affected by the economic slowdown by paying for their workers' salaries, saving an estimated 165,000 jobs and reducing the unemployment rate. As someone from the aerospace industry, I personally witnessed how the JSS assisted companies to retain workers and use the downtime to reskill our workers. Individuals who lost their jobs or are self-employed also receive support, such as the COVID-19 support grant and self-employed person income relief, which provided up to $9,000 to support taxi drivers and platform hire workers and their families through the difficult times. The SG United Jobs and Skills Package also helped redeploy manpower to high-demand areas. For example, I remember how, with the facilitation by MOM and MTI staff, aerospace workers were reskilled and redeployed to the busy electronics industries. And to help deliver this support, grassroots and union leaders like Ms. Joby Lee from Pasir Ris went online to raise awareness for these support measures. During the early stages of COVID-19 outbreak in Pasir Ris, it was the community that stepped up to provide sustenance to those in need. Grassroots volunteers such as Madam Omar, Mr. Raymond Pua, Mr. Rajiv, and Mr. Charlie Cheong, all volunteers from Pasir Ris East, were among the first to offer food packs and rations to families who were quarantined at home. The community's efforts evolved into the Pasir Ris East Care Store, which continues to provide monthly assistance to needy residents. Additionally, SG Buka Puasa delivered over 300,000 food rations to residents to break their Ramadan fast. Engineering Good provided laptops to children who had no access so that these children could continue with remote learning. And together with government support, the unity and generosity of the community played a crucial role in providing sustenance during the pandemic. Beyond providing physical support, the community also prioritized mental health and digital connectivity during the pandemic. Volunteers and staff from the Silver Generation Office and Active Aging Centers visited seniors who felt isolated to check on their well-being and allay their fears about vaccination. Digital ambassadors were deployed to assist seniors in learning how to use technology such as Zoom, digital payments, and WhatsApp to stay connected with loved ones. Proactive steps were taken to ensure that residents had the necessary mental and emotional support during the pandemic. Thirdly, our resilience as a society was integral in our ability to overcome the pandemic. Unsurprisingly, our journey through COVID was far from smooth. At times, we had to re-evaluate safe management measures just as they were loosened, such as when we combated the Delta and Omicron variants. Often, it felt as if we were forced to backpedal, even as we thought we had forged ahead. We moved between circuit breaker, phase 2 heightened alert, and stabilization phase. This required resilience from a society to stay the course. At times, we had to pivot to meet and overcome these new challenges. This was exemplified by various industries during the pandemic, such as the aerospace industries, where airlines converted their aircraft to carry more cargo, and airline workers moving to manned vaccination centers or across different industries while upskilling and retraining themselves. The entire education sector had to adapt to home-based learning. Even religious practices had to make significant changes, such as suspending prayers and booking for prayers at mosque. These examples show the value of resilience and perseverance and how it has helped us to adapt to changing circumstances. Mr. Speaker, in Malay, please. Tuan Speaker, kita dapat melihat bagaimana penularan wabak COVID-19 telah mengubah persekitaran Singapura secara drastik. Dari fasa pemutus rantaian jangkitan ke fasa ketiga dengan kewaspadaan dipertingkatkan ke fasa 2 dan kembali ke fasa perstabilan. Kita terpaksa beralih ke tahap-tahap tersebut dengan berhati-hati untuk memastikan keselamatan awam terpelihara dan sistem jagaan kesihatan Singapura tidak tertekan. Meskipun berdepan dengan situasi yang mencabar dan tidak menentu, saya terharu melihat masyarakat kita menunjukkan semangat daya tahan dalam mengharungi rintangan pandemik COVID-19. Antara memori manis yang menyentuh hati saya ialah apabila masyarakat kita berganding bahu untuk menyokong pekerja penjaga kesihatan pada peringkat awal pandemik COVID-19. daripada memberikan kata-kata semangat kepada memandu mereka pulang dari hospital secara percuma, krisis COVID-19 telah menentukan kebolehan kita untuk bersatu dan membantu satu sama lain dalam masa-masa yang genting. Masyarakat Melayu Islam kita juga turut mempamerkan sifat-sifat terpuji semasa krisis pandemik COVID-19. Ramai yang bekerjasama dengan pelbagai pihak untuk membantu golongan yang memerlukan dalam persekitaran yang mencabar itu. Misalnya, inisiatif SJ Buka Puasa telah mengagihkan lebih 300,000 bekalan makanan kepada penduduk-penduduk yang memerlukan sepanjang bulan Ramadan. Dari segi rohani pula, kita tidak menjadikan krisis COVID-19 sebagai satu hambatan untuk menunaikan ibadah. Malah kita menggunakan peluang ini untuk mencari jalan keluar dengan cara-cara yang inovatif, seperti menunaikan solat jemaah di bawah langkah-langkah pengurusan selamat ataupun menjadikan pendidikan madrasah dan mengaji secara online. Kita turut memahami bahawa amalan agama boleh disesuaikan untuk menjaga kesejahteraan masyarakat umum. Akhirnya, kesabaran dan kecekalan kita telah membuahkan hasil dan membolehkan kita untuk keluar dari pandemik ini dengan selamat. Walaupun pencapaian ini sememangnya patut diraikan, kita juga harus lihat kepada masa depan dan mempersiapkan diri kita untuk menghadapi pandemik yang seterusnya. Ibarat pepatah Melayu, sediakan payung sebelum hujan. Kita harus mempelajari perkara-perkara yang berkesan dan perkara-perkara yang boleh diperbaiki supaya kita lebih bersedia untuk mengatasi pandemik seterusnya. Saya yakin dengan sifat masyarakat Singapura yang teguh bersatu, kita dapat mengharungi apa jua cabaran yang akan datang. Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to everyone in Singapore who had contributed and sacrificed in one way or another for the common good of all. Truly, it is only with each and everyone's effort and commitment to the cause will we able to pull through this crisis, which at times seem almost insurmountable. The paper highlights 7 key lessons that we can learn from our experience through the COVID-19 pandemic. However, there is an 8th lesson that is equally important and also mentioned by fellow member Mr. Sia Ken Ping, a lesson that is hard to pen down, that cannot be taught in textbooks, but only learned. It is the need to anchor, strengthen, and build upon the values of our society. While it is essential to work on infrastructure, supply chain, and policies to make us more resilient, these efforts will be futile if we do not stay united as a society and exhibit the values that have made us stronger during this challenging period. It is critical to recognize that the next pandemic is not a question of if, but when it will happen, and disease X may be even more dangerous than COVID-19. Therefore, we must use the same values to guide us, not only through the next pandemic, but also through the other challenges in our volatile and uncertain world. These values will help us to transform our economy and ensure inclusive growth, providing equal opportunities for everyone. It is too easy to forget these values of our society, and left to chance and on its own, it may deteriorate with time. And when the next pandemic comes, we may not be able to rally together as a society. COVID-19 is often described as the crisis of our generation. However, given the volatility of the world today, it may not be the only crisis for our generation. While we reflect on our policies and actions during COVID and learn and improve for the next pandemic, beyond policies and action, it is also through anchoring, strengthening, and building upon the values of our society that we have shown during the pandemic, the trust, the care for one another, and understanding towards one another, the resilience, grit, agility, and perseverance that will prepare our society for the next pandemic ahead. Mr. Speaker, I support the motion and once again would like to express our deepest gratitude to all in Singapore for contributing to our nation's fight against COVID. Majulah Singapura.
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the debate be now adjourned.
The question is that the debate be now adjourned. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. resumption of debate, what day?
Tuesday, 21st March 2023, sir.
So be it. Leader?
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that Parliament do now adjourn to tomorrow, 21st March 2023.
Question is that Parliament do now adjourn